Hi, can you see me okay? Great, let me just... There. This is the first time we're doing a video chat with our survey participants, so I want to make sure everything looks good. Okay, you can see me all right? Excellent, okay. Well, I want to thank you for being one of the first to participate in this type of research. As you know, I'm calling from the National ASMR Foundation, and we are going to be testing visual triggers today. So that's triggers that induce ASMR that are completely visual. So I called you quite a bit ago to test some auditory triggers. And if you remember, you ranked them on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being you don't really like that sound, to 10 being it gives you ASMR. It's a very relaxing sound. So we are going to be following the same format, except with visual triggers. So you will rate 1 for visual stimuli that doesn't really do anything for you. It doesn't trigger any ASMR, perhaps you even dislike it, and 10 being you really enjoy that visual trigger. So I have a lot of items with me to try to induce ASMR. So if you could just get comfortable for me, and I'm going to get a little bit of information from you, though I have most of it from the last time you completed this survey, and we can get right away started. So, let's see. Can you just confirm your name? Okay. And has your email or phone number changed? It has changed? Okay. So what is the new phone number? Okay, perfect. So you can hear me all right. Just want to make sure everything is set up. Let's see. Okay. I do apologize. This is the first time we're doing a live web survey, so there will be a couple things we're trying out with you, okay? So your address is the same. Perfect. Alright, I'm just going to review your results from the last survey. Thank you so much for participating in that, by the way. We got a lot of really interesting feedback. Okay. You did not like that trigger. Okay. You did like whispering. Okay. There we go. Okay. So, as a formality, I want to make sure that you know what ASMR is. Yep, it stands for Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response. So we're just going to be testing for that little tingling sensation in your head or in your chest sometimes. Let's see, down your spine is a common one. Okay. Alright, well, if you're comfortable and you can see and hear me okay, then we can go ahead and get started. Great. Do you have any questions for me? This is with the same foundation, the National ASMR Foundation. And okay, I think we are ready to go. The first set of triggers are going to be hand triggers. So once again, if my hands make noise, we aren't trying to focus on if the noise gives you ASMR. It's if the visuals give you ASMR. Okay, before we begin, I just want to remind you to, when I'm done with the trigger, to give me a number between 1 and 10, and I can enter it into our database. very first trigger is finger movements. It's kind of silly, but I really enjoy finger movements. And of course, every ASMR artist has a different style. And it's not only finger movements, it can be hand movements. Like this, where it's really using my whole body to move. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate finger movements or hand movements? Alright, so moving on, I want you to look at my finger and don't move your head, but follow with your eyes as I move my finger. And this is the next trigger. Okay, so what would you rate that? Thank you. I want to mention that the first set of these triggers is going to be mainly hand movement related triggers, and then I will move on to some of the props that I brought. Excellent. So next, I will be poking or tapping your face or the webcam, whichever you prefer, and it's known as face touching, camera touching, face tapping, etc. So, and I can even get really close and actually tap here. So how do we want to rate that trigger? Okay. So along these lines is face touching, which is different from tapping in that it's a little more gentle. It's not really so pokey and invasive, and it's more just me gently touching your face. So if you can use your imagination and pretend that I am touching your forehead, and your nose, and your eyes, and your cheeks. Just generally feeling your face. This is very common in doctor role plays, in which a doctor or a dermatologist is checking your face for injuries or skin problems or anything like that. It can be brushing a piece of hair from your face. There we go. So how would we rate face touching? Excellent. So next is a popular trigger known as plucking or pulling. So I'm going to be plucking and pulling a string or any other material. Maybe it's negative energy from the camera. There are two additions to this common trigger in which I'm pulling and then flicking. So this is a good example of negative energy. I'm pulling and flicking the negative energy out of you, or pulling and cutting, simply removing a made-up substance from you or the camera. Stand back and pull a larger so as you can see here, finger and hand movements, they all kind of merge together. A lot of things have many triggers in one. There we go. So that is plucking and pulling with the side of cutting and tossing. How would you rate that? Okay. Next is a trigger called scratching. So I will be scratching the lens. And of course, as most of these triggers, they're normally accompanied with a noise or a auditory trigger, such as So, how would you rate scratching? Excellent. So now we can move on to some of the props that I have. So, 1 second. The first being this piece of cotton that I have, which is flying around the room now. So I will be doing some face wiping, and this will be a very quick trigger, but I'm just going to wipe your face. So how would we rate face wiping? Yes, of course, you can use it with any object. It doesn't have to be cotton. It can be a wipe. It can even be a thumb, but it's a general quick motion. Excellent. Okay. The next trigger is a very popular trigger, and it is face brushing. So I'm going to just brush your face very gently with this brush, and it is an extremely soft brush. So I'm just gonna There we are. So how would you rate face brushing? Alright, thank you so much. So next is another simple trigger, and that is camera covering. So I'm just going to cover the camera here. Cover the camera. So how would you rate that? Of course, any feedback you have, I can enter it here, right underneath the trigger. There you go. Thank you so much. Any feedback is very appreciated. So, this next trigger is with a light. So, I want to confirm that you are okay with bright lights. So, I'll give you an example. If it bothers you, or if it gives you a headache, or if you avoid bright lights in general, this next bit of the survey will be bright lights. So, similar to that. Should we continue? Excellent, okay. So I'm going to bring this light in, and I want you to just stare at me. Or the light really, actually, but I'm going just to be moving the light around the camera. Try not to overload it. I think this trigger is best when it's subtle. So, let's do another exercise with this. Similar to follow the finger, but follow the light. Alright, so how would we rate the light trigger? Perfect. You're curious about more light triggers? Of course. I do have one more. So I'm going to hold my fingers like this and pass the light through my fingers. So it creates kind of a flashing trigger. So, how would you rate that? Wonderful. So next, I will be tracing. So tracing is another extremely popular trigger. So I'm going to just this is Jalila. It's a town in Mexico. You can trace with your finger, and that's known as finger tracing. Or, like I just did with a utensil, such as that. So, how would we rate that trigger? Okay, perfect. along that line, I have a whiteboard here and an expo marker, and we are going to be testing the trigger of writing and drawing. So, as long as you can see here, so that is writing, and I think it may be showing backwards for you on your end. You want me to write one more word? Sure. There we go. So how would we rate watching someone write? Excellent. So I'm going to draw a little picture for you. And writing and drawing are very similar, but I know in my case I prefer drawing to writing, so I wanted to include both of them. That's a little cat. So, how would you rate drawing? Okay. I think it's also different when you're watching a professional artist create something versus just a simple drawing. So, go ahead and explore that if you're interested. Another trigger is cleaning. So I'm going to clean the whiteboard. So tell me what you think of cleaning. So once again, I urge you to not focus too much on the noises, but the actual visuals. So how would we rate cleaning? Perfect. So I have a little book with me, and I'm going to flip pages for the next visual trigger. So, how would we rate flipping pages? Also known as turning pages. You have some feedback? Sure. Ready? There we go. Thank you so much. The next trigger is going to be called inspecting something or inspection. So I'm going to have an item and just inspect it. I know it sounds strange, but it is another common unintentional trigger. So I have a notebook here. So how would we rate inspecting something? Yeah, I agree. It's quite strange, but it's also pretty soothing in my opinion. Next is another sort of odd trigger. I have soap and an X-Acto knife here. This can sometimes stray into the territory of oddly satisfying, which sometimes overlaps with ASMR and sometimes doesn't. This trigger is known as soap cutting, and I will do the best that I can, but the gist of the trigger is cutting in very straight lines, or just cutting. And then even cutting it into slices. So, how would we rate soap cutting? But also keep in mind, this was a very impromptu version of it. You can find many videos online that are much better than this. Thank you. All right. So, I have a pair of earrings here, and this trigger is going to be me choosing which one for you. So, for example, this pair, this pair, So, how do you feel about the visual trigger of choosing and testing items out near your face? Perfect. So the next trigger, I'm going to be applying makeup to your face. You can find entire videos solely over this, so I'm just going to do one product. So I have a little lip mask. I'm going to apply a little product onto your face. Very similar to face touching, but if you are specifically looking for makeup application, that is the name of the trigger. So what would you rate that? Perfect. I have another here, and the trigger is going to be fire or smoke? Smoke. Let's see if you can't see the smoke. Oh, you weren't able to see the smoke. Let's try again. Let it burn for just a second. Were you able to see it a little bit better? Great. Okay. How would you rate that? Great. So we only have 2 more triggers, and they are relatively simple. So first, let's do hypnotic movement or hypnosis. So just hypnotic movement. You can follow my fingers or not. So this is patterned, repetitive, hypnotic movement. So how would we rate that? Wonderful. So for our very last trigger, I'm going to use a brush or 2 brushes, and this is called mirrored touch. So that's where I will be doing to myself what I'm pretending to do to you. So you can also do it with touch, such as So how would we rate hypnotic? Sorry, forgive me. Mirrored touch. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I think that is the end of this survey. I'm going to input all of your answers and compile it. And if you'd like, I can send it to you. Great, let me just jot that down. And once we release our full study, you can access that online on our website, which you should already have access to, but I'll send you an email. Great. Yeah, thank you so much for contributing to this research. It's really important in my opinion. Anything that can help people relax and find out what triggers work for them, I think is important. Great. Alright, you too. Bye-bye.